When you think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and arcade games, your first thought is probably the classics. The original arcade game, Turtles in Time, the shellacious ports that every kid in the late 80s and early 90s had to have. But what happens when a game tries to deceive you? Make you think that it's the same caliber without actually earning it. Supplant itself in the narrative. You get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade Attack for the Nintendo DS. But why do that? Why deceive the player base? We gotta get to the bottom of this.
Someone's asking questions again. See that it's handled.
Released in 2009 by Ubisoft, Arcade Attack, at first glance, is your typical arcade-style beat-em-up. Move from the left side of the screen to the right, mow down waves of enemies in your way, grab a slice, and then rinse and repeat until you reach the boss or a cutscene. The standard formula. And if there was any franchise that's definitely mastered it, it would be the Heroes in a Half Shell. Except there's a reason why some games in the genre are legends and others are forgotten. So ask yourself, when was the last time you heard anyone at all, even mention TMNT Arcade Attack?
Remind you of anything?
Yeah, I think they knew that they had a dud on their hands, as it seems like they were desperately trying to cover it up, boldly doubling down on that classic arcade connection and hiding behind the franchise's reputation, attempting to lure in kids, and let's be real here, gullible parents, by prominently featuring the 87 version of the Turtles on the game's cover. But this is just a ploy. The 87 Turtles are not in this game. The truth is that the game seems to be suffering from a bit of an identity crisis, mixing a very loose take on the 87 Turtles gameplay, the 03 Turtles storytelling and graphics, and then just tying it all together with the original Mirage Turtles, aka the comic book variants, with the cutscenes, accumulating in a weird hybrid that clashes in tone and style. But that said, I don't think it was just some random design flaw. In fact, upon closer inspection of the game's cover, these may very well be the 03 Turtles. Though unlike every other game featuring them, it's not nearly as obvious. They aren't using the same art style, though it is still highly likely. TMNT Arcade Attack actually dropped the same month as Turtles Forever, the huge TMNT multiverse crossover that doubled as a series finale for the 2003 saga, which, shock of all shocks, featured the same three versions of the Turtles teaming up. Which, by the by, would have made a much better game than this. And perhaps that was the original intent. With so much overlap, would it really be that much of a stretch to believe that these two were originally supposed to be connected, and that the devs just weren't privy as to how? Ultimately resulting in what we got. Maybe that's definitely possible. Those are classic licensed game blunders after all. But I also suspect foul play. Odds are, this game probably started out as an 03 Turtles game. That is, until Ubisoft dropped an order to have it workshopped to include the other elements last minute. As the hard truth is, the 2003 games didn't exactly do so hot critically, and one of these two are more profitable than the other. Of course, that's all just a theory.
Okay!
Holy crap! YouTube is really cracking down on the copyright stuff. And nowhere, outside of the cover, does that stand out more than the cutscenes. As Arcade Attack on its own has a pretty basic story.
We've got to save April!
No, actually, not this time. Ironically enough, instead, the Shredder is making his return and the Turtles have to stop him. But as you can plainly see, it is all about the presentation. Playing out as an animated comic strip using the Mirage Turtles, which looks radical, and in my opinion, is the best part of the game. Especially since the banter between the Turtles and the villains is on point as always, because it was written by the 2003 team! or at least a member of the original cast, Sam Riegel, who actually voiced Donatello.
I'm making this up as I go!
Though knowing that makes it actually more of a shame that Arcade Attack doesn't have any voice work at all. And I mean like nothing. Not even one-liners during combat. One of the Turtles' main gimmicks. And let's not even bother mentioning the music. No, seriously, let's not. I can't even remember it. It was that forgettable. Though, at least it wasn't like offensive or anything. Though, again, I do need to highlight the contrast. That, in all fairness, would really only be noticeable by turtle aficionados, as the Mirage Turtles and the 03 Turtles have very different mannerisms. And before we get any, well, actually... Yes, I am aware that there's a Turtleverse. Adaptations overlap, blah blah blah. The 03 Turtles are supposed to be more faithful to the source material, but come on. Even they pointed out the differences.
So you're supposed to be us from other worlds. I don't see it.
And I shall follow suit by reaching for the lowest hanging fruit here by putting the story and the gameplay side by side. And hold on a second. There we go. Speaks for itself. Yeah, I know. Not the biggest reveal at this point, but the contrasts really only start to add up as we jump into the action, as we show off the game's coolest feature: 2-player co-op. Okay, yeah, not exactly revolutionary, especially for this franchise. But, to be fair, a fully co-op campaign isn't something you saw too often on handhelds. Though, good luck actually getting someone to play this with you. There's gotta be someone out there, right? Yeah, who am I kidding? Nobody's gonna want to play this with me. But even so, at least I still don't have to tackle this game alone, as Arcade Attack wants to play with me. See? I've got myself an AI partner by my side.
Like and subscribe, sexy.
Ugh, no, I meant Final Fight 3 style. Ugh. Okay, well, now that I've got a, buddy by my side, it's time to kick some shell. First off, unlike the classic arcade titles where you're locked into the turtle you chose at the start until you die, here you start every stage by picking your and your partner's turtle, so you'll have plenty of opportunities to try them all. Not that it really matters, as despite having different stats, they all feel and play pretty much the same. And the team comps don't seem to make much of a difference either. Dropping in, the world and how you move in it is weird, but I do at least see what they were going for. Once again, referring to the classics, the Turtles movement is standard for arcade-style beat-em-ups. They only face left or right most of the time while attacking, and will snap to those positions in fights. And while lining up foes for battle can be a bit troublesome at times, mostly in lesser brawlers, it works, and has been the mainstay for the genre to this day, when using 2D. Which, you've all probably noticed by now, this game clearly isn't. But that's not going to stop them from snapping left or right without turning. Combine that with a steeper angled plane to walk on, turtles that feel as slow as, well, turtles. With no run feature in sight, it all ends up feeling a little off. With the more familiar you are with the beat 'em up genre, the harder these changes are gonna hit ya. It definitely doesn't do the combat any favors, especially in the controls department, which are okay at best and baffling at worst. Each turtle has two main attacks, one with their weapon and one without, which you can mix together for greater combo chains. Though really, they aren't that different from one another, at least not enough to warrant two separate buttons. Awkwardly sitting at the top of the DS is our jump button, which can be used for getting behind our foes, dodging, and obviously jump attacks. But the big shell shocker has to be the inclusion of a block button, a feature which most beat 'em ups usually go without, and also would have made a lot more sense on the shoulder buttons, which go unused by the way, a trend occurring with most of the DS's features. The real bad news here though is that you aren't the only ones with a block. And oh boy, do they ever spam it. Leaving you with one of two options. Wait.
Can't this thing go any faster?
Or grapple. And it's here where I find myself just being dumbfounded by the devs' choices. Hitting the B and Y buttons together lets you grab your foe and give them a good old-fashioned except that's not all it's used for. So for about the first quarter of the game, my eyes just kept straying to the upper left corner of the screen, looking at that shiny, flashing bar that says special. And I tried every combination I could think of to get that thing to go off, as well as tapping the touchscreen where the combat is actually taking place. But no dice. Well, turns out it's tied to the grapple. The special, which recharges itself between uses, is activated by grabbing your fellow turtle, making it more of a team attack than a special, but whatever. Still sucks, and for multiple reasons. First off, unlike say, the Simpsons arcade game where different character combinations result in different attacks, here, they're all the same. Definitely a missed opportunity if you ask me, though you can get different moves to go off with different button combinations. But the default, aka the easiest to trigger, is the spin attack, which seems like it would be a good multi-hitter. But here's the catch. Obviously, to maximize the damage here, you're going to want to be surrounded. Except with all the baddies around you, it's just that much easier to grab them as it is to grab your partner, resulting in you throwing the enemies away from you. Not to mention, you're probably going to take a few hits just trying to grab your buddy, as there's really no way to tell the AI that you want to launch a team attack, and they just keep moving all over the place. And even if you miraculously can pull it off, the attack actually only hits foes once due to their iframe, so you know, boo. But I guess it's my fault for trying to speed things up here, but you know, what can I say? There's next to nothing going on. I want to get it over with. Every stage really just boils down to move from the left of this massive hallway to the right, a group of baddies will show up, you pound them in the paste, and then move on to the next group, with health or a few weapons appearing in between them. Yum yum! Potty pizza. Now, I will grant that there's at least an okay variety of foes to contend with. There's small guys, fast guys, big guys, these douchebags with the bombs. But there's also no obstacles to contend with, no stage hazards to abuse, no classic TMNT, who turned out the lights? It doesn't even let me throw baddies off the side of the elevator stage, which is an actual crime in beat-em-ups. And while you can make a similar argument against most beat-em-ups in general, it's super noticeable here. While the stages do look fine, much better on a smaller DS screen than say blown up here, all the stages are extremely basic. And considering that time travel is involved in this game, you know they had lots to play with if they wanted to. Trust me, it's been done before. Instead, here, the turtles go to the future, to a place that looks like ancient Japan? Like, wow, way to think outside the box, guys. Also, check out what the turtles are wearing once they hit 88 miles per hour. Just more evidence that this was obviously supposed to be an 03 Turtles game. That, or maybe this is just what everyone wears in the year... Wait a second, that's not the year, that's my score! And what's worse, my rating is lower than the AI's. And he's dead.
Oh, shell shock.
Talk about lame. What a token use of the dual screens. The top is just one giant scoreboard. One that I could never really figure out as it seemed like my score just dropped for no reason. Not that it matters, as aside from being able to raise your partner when they're down, all of those easy points shell out a lot of lives. I mean like a lot of lives. Meaning you're basically gonna beat this one in about 2 hours just button mashing your way to victory. It even makes a joke of the only would-be threat, the bosses, making everything kind of trivial? Wait a second, the bosses. Here it is! Our final piece of evidence that this game was always meant to be a 2003 Turtles game. Hun and Karai. Yeah, I know, they appear in multiple TMNT continuities. I especially love the IDW take on Hun. So good. But those are clearly the 2003 designs. And if that isn't enough proof, Cyber Shredder is the version they're trying to bring back, and he only exists in the 03 series, which pretty much seals it, for me at least. While I can't make any definitive statements, odds are that this was probably meant to be a game coinciding with the end of the 2003 Turtles series, and was probably rushed out the door to line up with that finale, despite dull music, uninspired stages, and boring gameplay, forcing them to change tactics and lean heavily into the nostalgia of the 87 series just to try and sell this crappy game. But why do this? Why deceive players? Cowabunga.